This time we will close off some tiny holes we found in the forecastle, and we continue to de-rust the waterline with a special tool.
The big task for this year is to get the hull fixed from the outside. We hope this could be achieved by good pressure wash and a little bit of paint. When we hauled out the boat, we discovered a very severe corrosion damage. So now we are facing a labor-extensive, very expensive and extended time in the shipyard.
Hello, it's so good to see you again. I'm Barbara, and together with Daniel I tried to bring this neglected steel ship back to life. This time Cash from the shipyard repairs the tiny holes we found when we took the interior of the forecastle apart. And like in the last two videos and in many more videos to come, we will continue the tedious job of de-rusting the waterline. And this time we will talk a bit about the Tercoo. And we will find out how good is good enough on a refitting project. But before we start into this video, I want to thank all our new supporters on Patreon and PayPal. Your support makes a huge difference, and it would not be possible to make these videos without you. Thank you so much. And now let's bring you up to date.
So far we ripped out all the interior from the saloon, underneath the aft cabin and in the forecastle, and removed a lot of dusty old cork insulation together with some frames. After that, the lads from the yard repaired the very big electrolysis damage. And we called in an expert who discovered a very big hole. But we decided to continue this project anyway. And while the shipyard was repairing the hole, we continued with massive destruction and removing the tank from hell. Eventually we started de-rusting the waterline and preparing the hull for painting. So what's up next? Let's pause the video for a second, so I can introduce you to Cash. This lad is amazing, and he did most of the work on Flying Coney. He was born with an angle grinder in one hand and a welding machine in the other. You can imagine that finding all the damage on our ship wasn't always easy for us. And Cash was a big help. It is unbelievable what he knows about historic ships and how to repair them. I think there is nothing he can't fix. And he truly loves his job. He has such a positive attitude and always cheered us up when we doubted that it was worth to continue. Like that one time when we found multiple pinholes in the forecastle.
Okay, so now over down here.
No, not again, not a party. Not again. Just joking. After the short recap, let's see why we have some holes in this area. Probably here was a chain locker, and this area was more exposed to the elements than the rest of the ship, and that is why we have this broken stringer and also some holes down here. But for us, the important thing is that we know why there is a hole. That there is a reason, and that was the same with all the other holes that we found so far. There always was a reason. There was the weak spot right above the concrete, there was the problem connected with the wood right against the hull, and in this case it was the former chain locker. For us that is always good news, because that means there will be no unexpected hole opening up when we go back into the water. And now let's see Daniel doing some magic.
Today I want to show you a magic trick. How to attach a welding electrode to the hull, like here. Doesn't work, but I can do it. Ta-da! So that's good news, because on Friday we already thought we were finished with welding the hull. So now on Monday there's even more welding to do.
So, and when we have to insert the plate, it takes more time.
Okay.
So,
And what's the better option? Or
yeah,
doesn't matter?
it doesn't matter,
Okay.
because around it's taking off.
Yep, okay.
Luckily, all the tiny holes are in the area where we know that she was exposed during her fishing times. And the good news is that the steel in this area is still good and it is above the waterline. So we just have to close the holes. and it probably would be enough to just weld them shut. But just to be absolutely sure, we put a blade against the hull from the inside and weld them shut from the outside. So just like an overplating, but the other way around. Because no one will see the hull from the inside once the interior is done, but at least in our opinion, an overplating above the waterline isn't quite beautiful. And as if there wasn't enough work to do, we decided to prepare the hull for welding ourselves to save some money.
No, like this. Okay. Like 2 centimeters
From the frame?
Yes.
Okay.
Just control it. When I'm.
What are you doing?
I'm holding the plate.
Why?
Nothing better in your free time than holding the plate in place. I'm ready.
Are you scared?
Nope.
Is it hot?
Nope. Okay.
Before we went to the shipyard, Daniel tried to find a method to de-rust the waterline, and he found a Dutch company called Tercoo, which produces this beast. It seemed to be the perfect tool for us, so we called Tercoo and asked them if they would like to support our project and send us one of their machines. And to our big surprise, they said yes. And they were so kind and sent us not only this machine, but also some Tercoo discs for the drilling machine. So a big thank you to Tercoo for your support. For full disclosure, we got this machine for free, but we are allowed to say about it whatever we want, and we waited to share our opinion with you until we had a whole ship of real-world experience. Let's talk a bit about the Tercoo. When this disc is turning, these metal pins hit the steel similar to a needle gun. It removes the paint and the rust and leaves a clean surface similar to sandblasting, ready for recoating. In contrast to the needle gun, it is much quieter and more gentle to the steel. And it runs with electricity, so you don't need a compressor. I guess the only downside is this thing is pretty heavy.
my chest how it beats when you put your hands on me. Time goes fast, but yet so slow. I leave all thoughts, yeah, I let them go. 'Cause I'm here with you, and all I need is you. It's so easy to be us. We lock ourselves up from the world we're lost. It's so easy to be us. We lock ourselves up from the world we're lost. Don't know what you really feel, but I really like this dream. Don't need to feel anything but you floating in my bloodstream.
The Tercoo has been an absolute lifesaver in this situation. I do not know any other tool where it's possible to strip such a large area without changing multiple discs. I think it's a very, very good way to strip paint and to get rid of quite a lot of rust fast. However, I think we're beyond the level where DIY methods make much sense on the hull, so there is basically only one option, that's called sandblasting. Unfortunately, sandblasting isn't allowed here in the yard, and I've asked multiple times. I've asked because of hydroblasting, that's also not allowed. We're trying to remove as much rust as possible to get us to the next 1 or 2 years until we can sandblast the hull. And especially in the areas amidships, like here, there is quite deep pitting on the hull, so it's almost impossible to dig into these deep holes. But we're painting it with a 2-component filler paint, and it's more an experiment, and we have to have a look how good it works. It will work at some parts, and it will definitely improve the paint and the rust level of the ship. So there will be less rust than currently. I'm pretty sure about that.
During our time in the shipyard, I learned that finding the perfect method and overall perfectionism isn't the most important thing on such a project. The most important thing is to get things done and be pragmatic. For example, when it comes to derusting and painting. Of course, the better you prepare the surface, the better the paint is, the longer it will last. But we are always limited by the circumstances, the time and the money. So sometimes good enough is just perfect. I know there are different ways to skin a cat. And I would never claim that my approach is the best. In hindsight, I would do many things different. It still bothers me that we didn't took the time to apply rust converter before painting. But at this time it was the best we could come up with. Remember, we worked about 10 hours a day and spared the weekends for making videos. And on the long run, we want to blast the hull anyway. So what we try to achieve now is to slow down the rust and do the best we can do until we're ready for a brand new coating. And at least in my opinion, that is the only way to tackle such a big project. Do whatever you can get done now, even if it's not the absolute best method. It will be way better than just ignoring the problem and waiting for the best method, the right moment or the money. And now, let me know what you think.
We mostly use the big Tercoo to de-rust the waterline. Where it really shines is to get rid of old paint and rust, but it also has some downsides. The Tercoo doesn't like edges. When you hit an edge, you damage these discs and you lose these metal pins. And that was a bit of a problem when we worked in areas where two blades were overlapping, because we had to be very careful not to get too close to the edges. But overall, we are very happy that we have the Tercoo for the shipyard time. And we can't wait to use it on the smaller rusty areas on the aft deck or the superstructures, with newer, less pitted steel, because even though it is possible to de-rust the 150 feet of waterline, it is no fun and it brings us and the Tercoo to the limit.
I love to research stuff. I can spend hours reading how to do things and considering all the pros and cons of different methods. And I always try to tell you only informations I'm certain about. Like last video where I talked about flying conies history. I mentioned that flying coney might have been used for minesweeping. And I got many comments that mainly wooden boats were used for this job. And I have to say that I'm very glad that we have so engaged viewers that love to know more about flying coney and also know a lot about maritime history themselves. So you might be happy to know that we always had the strong suspicion that flying coney originally was a wooden ship. And this week we finally made a big step forward. We found a document that said that her frames are indeed from a wooden warship. By the way, we put a document with everything we know about flying conies history and all the resources we found on Patreon. But besides all those kind comments that truly want to help, there are also always some comments that just want to tell me I'm wrong. I know the best way to handle them is to just ignore them, but that's really hard for me. Because usually I make my homework and I'm very careful to share only things I'm certain about. Of course, also I make mistakes. Sometimes. And even with the most detailed research, you can make false assumptions. But overall, I try my best to provide you with solid information you can trust on. That's really important for me, and I always hope that these informations are, if not helpful, then at least entertaining for you. And now, Cass finishes the repairs of the pinholes.
And that's all we have time for today. But if you want to see more of us, I have good news. We decided to start Instagram this week and we already posted some pictures. So you should really check it out. I'll leave a link for you in the description. And if you want to see more of our videos, you can start binge watching here. And it would really mean a lot to us if you hit the subscribe button. It is absolutely free and it shows us that you enjoy watching our videos and appreciate what we are doing. And that always cheers us up and keeps us going. So your click makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time.